How do? My name is Andrew Hancock and I am a VMware technical architect from Yorkshire in the United Kingdom. I have worked with VMware since their birth in 1998, so that has been over 24 years I've been working with the VMware product catalogue. Some of my close colleagues may say, if you cut Andy in half these days, it reads VMware like a stick of rock from Blackpool Pleasure Beach. I have now written 130 articles and recorded 10 hours of VMware vSphere videos for Experts Exchange and received 41 Experts Exchange awards over the last 10 years working with the Experts Exchange community. I am currently the overall #1 point earner in the Hall of Fame at Experts Exchange. I am honoured to have been accepted into the VMware vExpert program since 2011 and more recently a VMware vExpert Pro for the last 3 years. Welcome back to another edition of Hancock's VMware Half Hour. Okay, well this is a continuation, and I mentioned this in a couple of other videos that I did, in how to add NFS and how to add iSCSI storage using a Synology NAS. And in the iSCSI video that I've done for you, I showed you how to manually create LUNs. We did some network configuration on the NAS, we did some network configuration on the hosts, and we manually added a LUN. We did the same with NFS. We manually added an NFS export as well. Now I said that we would come back and we would have a little look at the Synology storage console for VMware. So here we go. In this video we're going to have a little look at the Synology storage console and see how it works, and we'll compare and contrast and we will see which is the easiest. So I did actually state, and I've left it, if we actually go to the SAN manager, and again it always makes me laugh because I don't really consider a Synology NAS to be a SAN, we get this little message here that's sort of kind of telling me and warning you that, way, we could do this easier if we get the storage console. So here we go, let's click the link and see what happens. This is recorded live as I do it. I don't have the Synology storage console currently installed on our cluster, and I'm just looking for it here because it's obviously given me a link. Video converter, Synology storage console. Here we go, Synology storage console from VMware. Download. That's going to take me to, okay, it's an OVA, so it's 2 minutes, 1.7 gig. Shouldn't take too long. Just looking to see how long that's going to take and how long I can waffle on for, but it's coming down quite fast. So I'll go back to our familiar clustered environment. As I said to you before, I'm not really a fan of iSCSI. You can get yourself in a real mess dismounting LUNs. iSCSI was a thing that we deployed 20 something years ago when it first came out. It was a cheaper replacement than fiber channel, and we deployed a lot of it, and later we revisited a lot of those implementations and we replaced iSCSI with NFS, because in a lot of those clients and a lot of those workloads they worked far better over an NFS export on a NAS than they did with an iSCSI in creating hundreds of LUNs with jumbo frames. So my preference now, and I think a lot of the technologies today with things like TinTree and Pure Storage and NetApps, and I can hear a cat meowing outside and I'm sort of kind of thinking to myself, is that one of our cats? And I'm thinking it can't be one of our cats because they're house cats. Although I've got the windows open, I don't actually believe it's one of our cats. Anyway, so that was just a bit of filling. Our Synology storage OVA has been downloaded, so I'm going to deploy this OVA. I'm going to select deploy OVF template, and I'm going to upload the storage console. and I think that I downloaded it to here somewhere. Here we go. And I'm going to click next. I'm just going to go with the Synology Storage Console default name. I'm going to deploy it to the EE cluster. I'm going to have a little think about where I want to put this. Okay, it's a fatal error has continued. Maybe I'll select a host. A fatal error has occurred. So let's just see whether or not I can get this deployed. No. I don't know. Going well to start with. Failed to deploy the OVF package. It's possible that the OVF package is broken. It's not gone well, is it? Maybe it doesn't like the name, so let's just change. You can see something whizzing in the background here. Synology. Can't believe that it's the name. Somebody's console. EE training data center. Next. Compatibility check succeeds. I'm going to put it on 7 only because I want to install it on spinning Rust or SSD. An error has occurred. Well, I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to put this video on pause, and I'm going to scratch my head and see what on earth this is causing this problem. So I'll be back in a moment. Okay, I'm back. It's interesting. The moment that I actually expanded the error message, and I'm just going to go back to the EE cluster summary. The moment I actually expanded the error message and actually basically just very quickly looked, failed to deploy the OVF package, throwable proxy calls, I distinctly remember a question that came up on Experts Exchange in the last 3 or 4 weeks, with somebody actually having exactly the same problem, which does appear to be some sort of issue related to vCenter server. So I'm not going to debug the problem of this. I've just actually gone back to the... I've connected directly to the host using the host client, and I'm going to deploy the OVF package in that manner. So there's always a good reason to use Synology Storage Console followed by next. Okay, we don't seem to get an error message at the moment. So I'm going to deploy it to our SSD, and I'm going to click. Actually, I'm going to deploy it to spinning Rust because I don't really think that this is going to use a lot of resources. So I'm going to click next. I'm going to use the VM network. I'm going to put thin. I'm going to power on automatically. Click next. And it's actually obviously wanting vCenter information and password. So that's administrator at vSphere.local. And this is because it's going to register with our vCenter server. It wants a host name and it wants a network IP address. Yeah. So thin. I'm not going to power on automatically for the moment. Click to expand. So vCenter IP address is vCenter 7. I did say IP address there. I'm putting in an FQDN as I've sort of kind of suggested to you. It says you can modify the settings with the console virtual machine. Okay, well let's go with an FQDN as I've been preaching, and if it all goes wrong then we'll put an IP address in. Storage console, yeah, that'll do. We need a network IP address 192.168 182. I'm going to need to fetch one of those. Our default gateway. Just trying to think where I can put this quickly without actually going off and searching for an IP address. Let's go high. Let's go 249. I don't think that's actually going to cause you any problems in this range. So is console. Okay, so host name, network IP address, mask, default gateway, DNS, FQDN for vCenter server, and we'll click next. Field password does not match. That's interesting because I just cut and pasted it. So I'm going to try that again. Unsupported element IP. This isn't going very well at all, is it? This is just turning into. I was going to swear there. Next, unsupported element in section. It doesn't like me IP address, I think, or it doesn't like vSet. I don't know. Unsupported element IP assignment selection. Maybe that is, it doesn't actually like vCenter information, so we're going to have to put an IP address in there, 192.168.182.135. So much for no, so it's not. I'm struggling here. Who was saying easier that the Synology storage console was going to be a breeze and easy? I can't even get it installed. Okay, so host name, network IP address, default gateway, DNS. I'm just going to click finish, and I'm going to really maybe I should do an outtake. And just cut these bits out and put them at the end for you to watch. Let me have a little browse around and a look again and see whether or not that I can get this damn OVF deployed. How appalling is this? I'll be back shortly. Well, I kid you not, I've done absolutely nothing. Well, maybe I'm fibbing a little bit. I downloaded it again. But I'm not using that copy. I quickly looked at the MD5 signature and I checked that against the published one, EC3C. I downloaded a second copy of it, which is here. So I have two copies of it. One with the brackets one. But then I just basically deployed it again. And this time it's actually basically comes up and turns around and tells me to review the details. And it's not giving me an error message this time about a throwable proxy thing. So, your guess is as good as mine what the issue is here. But anyway, so before anything else craps out, I'm going to continue quick. So, I'm going to click next. And on that point, actually, I've just remembered that I have actually been struggling with an issue in the lab here with ESXi 011. I thought I'd mention it now. That the NFS connection to the NAS has been very, very unstable. And I've not been able to rack my brains what on earth the problem was going on with it. And then I noticed that one of the network interfaces on the switch was flapping between 100 and a gig. So there you go, either a dodgy network cable or a dodgy network interface or some transient rubbish going on there. But anyway, so again, check your networking. Normally, if you have them set to auto, they should negotiate at a gig and there shouldn't be any problem. But if you've got a problem with a network interface, a physical network interface on the card, the NIC, or the port,
or the cable, then you can get these flapping situations. And that's all it was. I just happened to notice one of the network interfaces was at 100 gig, and I thought, well, that's not good, and that was the cause of the instability with that connection. So I'm going to have a little look at I'm going to put it on our SSDs, and I'm going to click next, and I'm going to deploy it as a thin, and I'm going to click next. It's only an appliance, so VM network static. I'm going to give it a static IP address, and hopefully it'll ask me for one. Okay, so network IP address 192.168.182.249, 255.255.255.0, default gateway, putting the wrong one in, 168.182.1, DNS 192.168.182.254, vCenter IP. It's still telling me that it's an IP address. Okay, let's just ignore the IP address and put in an FQDN. See whether or not that it's intelligent enough to use an FQDN there. And we need the administrator's name, so I'm just going to use administrator local. And I'm going to use the magic secure password that I could never remember. And I'm going to click next. Hopefully it would give me some sort of error message if size on disk unknown, storage mapping 1, data store thin provision 1, VM network static, storage console 192.168.182.249, 255.250, 182. Looks okay. A little bit concerned about the vCenter IP, but let's click finish and see what happens. It can just completely break and not work. So I'm going to just get a big X out of that. I'm going to turn off my going to shut down. I'm just going to show you that this was, we storage migrated this to our iSCSI LUN. So I'm just going to shut that guest OS down, shut down guest OS. Yep. Okay, it's deploying. So I'm just gonna, I wonder how quickly this is gonna do. By the time I've hit the buttons to turn the cam off and everything, it could be back. So I'll just pause this. Well, as you can see, it failed to deploy. Okay, I'm going to give this one. If at first you don't succeed, try again. It's not giving me any reason why that's failed to deploy. I'm wondering whether or not they ran out of space on the data store. Can't believe it was anything to do with the IP address that 1.38 terabytes capacity is plenty free there, 227 gig. Let's just going to try that again. Let's just go with thick this time. You know what I'm going to do this time? I'm just going to go DHCP, IPv4, VM network name. I'm not going to change any of the parameters. 3 properties have invalid values. Okay. I'm just going to basically bang in an IP address. It's not something that I like using because I've been preaching FQDNs, but I really don't know why this is. And I would have thought, to be honest with you, that it's only really going to use that IP address or FQDN once it actually starts up and registers. We're going to go finish again, and we're going to see whether or not that we get and import this correctly. Okay, so it's actually Synology Storage Console. It's importing and deploying. I'm just going to scroll over here and see where it gives me any nonsense about. Yeah, okay, so we've got a throwable proxy cause general system error occurred again. So that failed IO error during transfer, Java error. So that was effectively a problem between client, this workstation, and the host, which is puzzles me really, because, you know, we're all connected here on 10 gig, and I don't believe really that there's any certainly no problems between here and the host. But of course, is it possible that vCenter 7, which is hosted on NAS, is giving any issues? Because we are actually deploying through vCenter server through to the host, and is the overhead of the NAS causing any problems there? It's interesting now how it actually basically gets to 90%, almost completing the transfer, and then basically turns around and falls over with an IO error during transfer, which appears to be Java. But we'll see now whether or not that this might yet turn into a 60-minute video deploying the Synology Storage Console. Okay, so are we going to work? Are we going to fail? 93%. Importing 100%. Are we going to get a good import this time? 100%. Okay. Are we done? Are we done? Are we done? Are we going to get lovely completed green ticks? It is possible that something in the import settings, the configuration, it doesn't like. But it does surprise me that it would fall over with a IO during transfer, which is one of the things that I have pointed out. I have written articles and created videos on how to export and import poor man's sort of kind of backup with VMware vSphere, and I don't really like to recommend that anymore, because over the years the whole export to OVF and import to OVF does really seem to have broken. Okay, so there you go. You know, I've done it twice. The first failed. The first couple of times were complete disasters, and for now, for whatever reason, it works. I've done it a slightly different way. I've basically not put in any values. Okay, so let's power on. All I really wanted to get to was the Synology Storage Console, so we could actually basically use some of the functionality to deploy exports and NFS. To show you how easy it was going to be. He says it's frustrating at the moment. Anyway, okay, so I'm going to launch a web console. So the storage console has booted. We've not got an IP address yet. I'm just looking to see that it is connected to VM network. It is connected. We do run DHCP on this network, so it should get an IP address. And I'm also looking down here as well, because the moment it wakes up and gets an IP address, there we go, 192.168.182.110. Once it's got that IP address, it should do some registration with the vCenter server. Okay, so I can ping it. Looking down here, because I would actually see that it would register a plugin with vCenter Server at some point. And it's not done so yet, because if it doesn't actually register itself as a plugin, then we don't actually basically get the little magic options to be able to, well, it's not integrated with vCenter Server, so we can't actually use it. Just let me pause this a minute, and I'm going to go and poke some things and do some fettling a minute. Okay, it's not going too well. Well, I've logged into the storage console, and the password is root and Synology, and it's telling me storage console server is disconnected from vCenter Server. Which it would help if I got the IP address right. Aha! Okay, my bad. IP address issue. It's 136, not 135. Hence why you should use FQDNs. Okay, so it's now telling me that the connection between the storage console server and vCenter server is normal. Like, you know, I've been doing this for 25 minutes and we've still actually basically not managed to deploy a LUN or an NFS export. So I'm hoping now, are we seeing anything? Ha ha ha! This is what I was hoping to see. Can you see down here? I'm sure you can. That it's downloaded a plugin, it deployed a plugin. So, and the plugin up the great big blue here says has been successfully deployed. So we can say refresh the browser. And we should now have, yay, a Synology storage console option. So, first things we need to do is we need to add a storage system. So, good question here. Which IP address do you use? So, I'm going to go to our... We can ignore all that for the moment. I'm going to go back to our control panel. And 182.107 is the management interface. System added successfully. So all I've done there is added labnas 192.168.182.107 to the Synology console. So at the moment it does actually list an iSCSI labnas LUN 1, which was the NFS iSCSI LUN that we added in the last video, and there's the NFS export that we added as well. So all I've done there is just run the Synology storage console. I put my teeth back in. Synology storage console, and I've gone to management and storage system, and I've actually added in there. So now that that's all talking, and it looks like the plugin and the console is actually talking to the storage system. So now I should just be able to go to the, if I actually basically go to our inventory, well, not content libraries. If I go to our inventory and I now go to our Synology storage console for our host, and I click new data store, now here we get, this is where it does all the heavy lifting. So Now there is an assumption here, of course, that you've got all your networking in place. So I don't think this is actually going to help you out with your networking. So we still need to do all that VM kernel work for NFS, or VM kernel work for iSCSI, and your storage networking and your binding and all that stuff that I've covered in the last couple of videos. So let's just create another LUN. So I'm going to say NFS lab NAS, we'll say 2, and we'll say we want NFS, and we want NFS 4.1. It's telling me that it's an invalid name. It obviously doesn't like underscores. Alright with dashes, but doesn't like underscores. Okay, so it doesn't like my naming convention. So we'll just use an NFS-lab-NAS2. We're going to use NFS 4.1 followed by next. Obviously we're going to choose the storage system. Okay, so here it's actually going to ask me for the IP address we're going to use. So we're going to use our NFS storage system. Now this could all go completely Pete-tong here. 10.10.1.200, and the fact that vCenter is also hosted on our NAS, it could all break terribly, but we'll see. So this is the interface that we want to use, 10.10.1.200 for NFS followed by next. It's asking me to create a new folder location. Okay, so previously we created a folder called VMware VMs, so I'm going to create this one called VMware VMs 2, and I'm going to create a folder location on the same volume as well, and I'm going to click next, and I'm going to click finish, and I'm going to see what happens. Data store successfully created. So there's our data store, and has that just now, I suspect that's just been mounted on, if we look at NFS NAB 2 and we look at hosts. Okay, so you can see that it's only been created on that data store. So if we wanted to mount it to the other data stores, then you just click those. Simple. There we go. If we go back to Lab NAS and we have a little look at shared folders, then here you can see VMware VMs 2, which it's created in the background. And if we have a little look at the settings that it's done on that, NFS permissions, then it's actually basically just put a wildcard in there. So anything on this NFS network could actually access that export. Unlike the actual, we actually granted permissions specifically to 3 hosts, so nothing else could actually attach to that. So that's something different to watch for if you're using this, that it's just using a wildcard, so anything on your network could actually mount that host. I don't think it's changed anything there. It's not changed anything there or there. It's not done any advanced quota or encryption. It's enabled a recycle bin, which is a little bit different to how we did it. It's just put a description in there: VMware NFS Data Store, Volume 2, which is BTRFS. So there we go. That's our second NFS Data Store as created by Synology Storage Console. Was it quicker and easier than the previous method? Providing, of course, remember that you still have to have all your storage networking in place, both on the NAS and both on the hosts. So it doesn't set any of that up for you. All it's doing is quickly creating a folder and sharing a folder and leaving it open to everybody. So let's have a little look at iSCSI. So if we go back to our host, so I'll choose a different host this time, and I'll right click the host and I'll go Synology Storage Console and new data store, and this time we're going to create a data store called iSCSI. It probably doesn't like underscores for this either. No, so I'm going to have to use iSCSI -lab -nas -lun2 iSCSI vMFS 6 followed by next storage system. Okay, we want to basically run over that network 10.99.1.200, which is our iSCSI storage network, followed by next. We're going to use a location as well on, I'm going to do volume 1 again, LUN2, and we're going to choose 30 gig, and I'm going to go with thick provisioning, followed by next, and followed by finish. Now it'd be interesting here to see whether or not that it creates another target, or does it use the same target. So I'm going to click finish. It's thinking, it's certainly thinking a lot longer. Successful. So here's our iSCSI LUN 009. So if I have a little look, I'm going to have a little look in devices here. Okay, so we've got our second LUN 1. I'm just going to check to see. Yeah, I suspect that let's just have a little look at our NAS, and we're going to have, this time we're going to have to go to the SAN manager. Okay, so this time it has created a second LUN, but it has used a different target. So we've got 2 connected now. So it has done things slightly differently. If I look at the LUNs, has it actually basically allow all? And if I look at the iSCSI targets, has it actually... It has allowed multiple sessions from one or more iSCSI initiators. I'm just going to rescan the storage adapter and see whether or not that it actually picks up another LUN. Nope, it hasn't. And I suspect so number 9's got 2 LUNs. Number 7 has only got a single LUN, the original that we actually created. Number 11 is only got 1 LUN as well, probably. Okay, so it now has 2 LUNs, iSCSI 11, which means that it's probably got 2 iSCSI data stores. It does. So is it just a case of rescanning the storage adapter? Rescan adapter. I'm a little bit surprised. I would have thought that... And we've still got a missing LUN on there. I would have thought that the Synology console appliance, Synology storage console appliance, would, in a cluster, have actually triggered a rescan adapter of all the hosts, so that the actual data store that we've created has been presented to all hosts at the same time. Two there. Now, of course, these 2 hosts here were dynamically discovered. Unlike the first host that we created, was statically allocated against a specific target. So because it was specifically allocated against a specific target, that is most likely the reason why at present. So if I just add 10, 10, 10, 99, 1.200 in here, and I rescan the adapter, yeah, there we go. So because before we had, in the first iSCSI 007 server, I'd specifically allocated a LUN against the target initiated IP address and the target IQN. That's what was actually preventing that from seeing that other. So realistically, all you've got to do is present the LUN to one host using the storage console, and then issue a rescan storage adapter on the other hosts. And there you go. So where are we? 40 minutes. Probably would have been a lot less if we could have got the storage, the Synology storage console deployed in the first place. So what's the takeaway from that? You're still going to have to do all the legwork at creating your VM kernel adapters for NFS or iSCSI. You're still going to have to create your storage networks. You're still going to have to basically do all the legwork getting the IP addresses right on your NAS. So the storage console really just quickly allows you to present a LUN without actually basically doing any of the manual manipulation in the SAM manager. What do I prefer? I think I prefer still to do it manually. So I know how things are configured. I can see that if you get into the habit really of actually using the storage console, which is very nice, don't get me wrong, it's a very nice thing to have, that deploys LUNs and exports quick and dirty, I think it does take away an awful lot of the understanding underneath of what you really need to do, especially if things go wrong. And if you're not actually familiar with how you create LUNs manually and NFS exports manually, it'll get you there very quickly. But later on, if you need to troubleshoot, you may have difficulties if you don't actually understand what's actually required to do these manually. So I will leave that with you. Again, thank you very much for watching. I hope you like the Towers of Hanoi reference. It's getting late on here in the evening in the UK. The sun is going down, and it's time for me to retire for the evening. So once again, thank you very much for watching. Please come back in the future to watch other videos here from the lab, and we'll start to look at reducing single points of failure by doubling up our network interfaces on both our management network and also our storage networks as well, and looking at multipath and looking at teaming. And I haven't forgotten, I still really want to get back to looking at Runecast Analyzer, and I really want to get back to looking at Skyline, which was a virtual machine here somewhere, but it's been migrated. It's been migrated to another lab because I wanted to have a little look of a deep dive there. So still want to look at Runecast Analyzer, still want to look at Skyline as to what they can bring to your environment and how they can benefit you and how they can help you as well. Runecast Analyzer is a commercial application, commercial appliance. Skyline is a VMware product application appliance, which is actually included as part of your licensing. Anyway, so thank you very much again for watching. Thank you very much, and I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. Things didn't crap out too much. Anyway, so all the best, and thank you very much for joining me today. Goodbye now.